okay, how are then we were thinking, okay, is there a way that we can just make a big chunk of money at one time? You know, um, and it started out. I don't remember who came up with the idea of selling candy, but we had the idea.
Sandy killing.
Yeah, that was my sister. Um, Somebody came up with the idea of selling candy bars. It might have even been the pastor. It probably was.
Blech.
He came up with the idea of selling candy bars
I'm
because he was
sure he
like,
did.
everybody loves chocolate. So, hey, I'm all for it at the time. I'm like, let's make some money. Let's go out. Let's do this. My whole goal the whole time was to get to a point where we're in surplus to where I'm thinking, okay, if we get these pastors provided for, the ministry is just going to boom. They're going to be out there. People are going to be coming in. People are going to be getting saved. We're going to have more and more people coming in, and like souls are going to be saved. The money then is going to come in. It's not going to be so difficult, and we're going to grow. We'll have our own place. All of these things that I was expecting, which did not happen. We today are going to talk about something that I was very involved with.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably go on for hours, and over the next few years, I probably will. But is the financial abuse and everything that happened there at the church.
Mm-hmm.
We have since leaving. We've spoken with people that had left prior to us, and we found out a lot of information about things that have been happening the decades prior to me really being a part of the church. I grew up in the church, but after the Lord saved me in 2013, that's when I really became really involved. And I would say within a year, so they all of the men in the church, they called the men. That was
Mm-hmm.
just like the phrase.
The men.
The men.
And then they're the pastors
Yeah.
and the pastors' families.
Yeah.
And then they were the men.
So I was a part of the men. So like the pastors weren't a part of the men. It was just like the non-pastor men.
Now,
And
if you
then
were a non-pastor, you were bottom of totem pole.
yeah,
You
no
were
matter what they say
a
about it, that was true.
non-privileged class. And you had to do all the bad stuff.
All the hard work. And
All the
everything.
hard work.
So I would say about 6 months, 8 months after I got saved, I was given like a super low fundraising goal of like $50 a week. Okay, but we didn't really have a method of doing that. But that was how it started. But then I would say about like 2 to 3 months later, I was now a part of the men. We were just like joining the older generation and the younger generation, everybody who was like over the age of 21 or whatever. I don't know. So I automatically got thrown into needing to make $2,500 a week, I think, at the time. Now, just think about that. Like if I were to tell you right now, you need to go make $2,500 this week,
A lot of people would not be
you
able to
couldn't do that. Like the chances of you being able to do that are like very, very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some men who had some businesses and they had ways of making more money. And so that was how we tried to do it. You know, I started going out trying to get jobs for these people and stuff. So this happened, I think we had about, I don't know, 6, 7 guys at the time, maybe. And we were trying
What
to bring
year was
in,
this
sort
approximately?
of in 2014.
Okay.
We were needing to make about $2,500 a week. And me, I just came out of college. I was working, you know, a full-time job, but it was like $13 an hour. It was not a very like high-paying job. I was doing well to pay my bills. So then all of my extra time was was primarily taken up with trying to make money somehow. But this is really where it started because the Lord had just saved me a year prior. And I was very thankful. I was like, man, like this church was here. I got saved. I love the Lord. I want people to know about him. I want to be able to grow a church so that other people can know and have a place to come to. So what I was told is the place that starts is you provide for the pastors.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be completely provided for. So I'm like, okay, well, there's a bunch of pastors. But at this point, we're only providing for one who wasn't even really a pastor at the time. He was a pastor emeritus. But he was the only one getting provided for. But like they would say, like, basically I owed them because of everything that they had done. Then my way of paying them back was to be providing for them. That's kind of like what he would say.
Red flag, man.
Yeah.
Because when you love someone, you don't expect anything in return.
No.
And when you're doing the Lord's work, you especially don't expect anything in return. The whole point of serving the Lord is to serve others.
Yeah.
So red flag. Just putting that out there.
So then there came a time where this pastor needed a medical bill paid. And I think it was what, $18,000 or something like that.
You would know more than I did.
I think it was like $18,000. So how do we raise $18,000 on top of what we're already trying to do? So then we got all the young people involved, people in college, high school, middle school.
That was me. I was in college at the time.
And we started out with things like we were doing pizza sales. Then we did a cookie dough campaign.
Christmas wreaths.
We sold Christmas trees. We were selling things, and it took, I don't know how long it took. It took a while, maybe a year, maybe 6 months. I don't remember. But we paid the $18,000 off. But I remember even in that, it kept, like, we had to raise more than $18,000 because it kept getting higher, the bill. And he didn't really have a specific number. It wasn't really like, okay, this has been paid. It took one of the ladies in the church to be like, okay, we've paid the amount you said for it to stop.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, because he was like, no, interest has happened, so it's more now, and all of this stuff.
Wow.
So we had to raise more than what was actually initially said. But anyway, then it was like, okay, then we were thinking, okay, is there a way that we can just make a big chunk of money at one time? You know? And it started out, I don't remember who came up with the idea of selling candy, but we had the idea.
Sandy killing.
Yeah, that was my sister. Somebody came up with the idea of selling candy bars. It might have even been the pastor. It probably was. He came up with the idea of selling candy bars.
I'm sure
he was like,
he did.
Everybody loves chocolate. So, hey, I'm all for it at the time. I'm like, let's make some money. Let's go out. Let's do this. My whole goal the whole time was to get to a point where we're in surplus, to where I'm thinking, okay, if we get these pastors provided for, the ministry is just going to boom. They're going to be out there. People are going to be coming in. People are going to be getting saved. We're going to have more and more people coming in, and like souls are going to be saved. The money then is going to come in. It's not going to be so difficult, and we're going to grow. We'll have our own place. All of these things that I was expecting, which did not happen. On the contrary, when the pastors were provided for, they did nothing. I think one pastor did some like outreach stuff, but that was it. The others just kind of preached once a week, and
the irony is that we paid them to abuse us.
Yeah. So
That's really ironic, but
so then I remember we were like, okay, we're gonna sell candy, and we're gonna do it one big candy selling day. Mm-hmm. So I was a I don't even know if I was a deacon at this point. I just kind of was taking charge of things.
Yeah.
And I planned out all these routes, these driving routes in Charlotte. So we're in the Piedmont Triad in North Carolina, and I wrote out routes for Charlotte, so an hour and a half or so away from where we were, and I think we had 15 people go that day, and we made like $3,000 or something selling candy in that one day. And we were just like, this is awesome. You know, we made the money, and, you know, that was pretty much it. But then it was like, okay, well, what about doing this to support one of the pastors completely financially?
I don't think that was our idea.
I don't remember.
I think that was the
I don't
leader's
even
idea.
remember. But then it was like, okay, so how are we going to do this? We got to keep doing this over and over and over again. So then we had probably 12 to 15 young people at the time. What are you laughing at?
It's just so
It's so bad,
bad.
isn't it? I know. We had like 12 to 15 young people. Some of them in middle school, like 12 years old, up to like college or adult, mid-20s. And I was like, I just like somehow from the time I got saved and was part of the church, like I was the one that they went to about providing for the need of the church. And I did it. Like I like would be like, come on guys, we got to do this.
Well, part of it was the trauma bond that you had with the leader.
Totally.
And he exploited the fact that you loved him
Yes.
to the nth degree. He
Yep.
exploited
Well, I
every
thought
part of
I had
who you
to.
were and what you cared for.
Yeah.
So that was horrendous. So
Yeah.
that he had an in, and
He used
that
me
was you.
for
It's very bad. And so that's it. And then also, we also all cared. So
Everybody cared.
Everybody cared. Initially, people are hopeful. People are buying in and to the future faking of, if we do this, then we will be ministering. If we do this, then the church will grow. We can get a building. Another thing was, we get enough money, we'll make enough money for the building. And so we really wanted a building. We really wanted to minister. But it just kept going. And because the need kept increasing, we had to go with increasing frequency. So what a typical candy selling day would look like is we get up pretty early in the morning. We pack lunches. Initially, we would pack lunch because we were trying to save time. Eventually, we had to stop doing it because it's just too much. But we would pack lunches, and we would all kind of group together, and either we would pack the boxes that morning, but then over time, we would kind of work on the efficiency of everything. So the efficiency would just be like super heightened because the need was getting bigger and bigger. And so because it was getting bigger and bigger, we had to be the most efficient as possible. So then we started doing it like the night before packing boxes, so that when we would get in the coolers, we would have these coolers, and we would have ice packs if it was really hot. And we'd make sure we'd have the stuff in the coolers, and then we'd put the coolers in the different cars. And so we'd have like a group of how many people?
Usually 3.
Usually 3 per car. And how many cars do you think?
I mean, it was like, I'd say like 3 to 4 cars.
Yeah, a Saturday going out from like morning, maybe like what? 9?
We would leave at like
8?
7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Yeah.
In the morning.
Depending on where we were
drive
going.
like an hour and a half to 2.5 hours.
One way.
One way. Sell at that city, and it
Until 5.
Until like 5, and then we come back, and then we would try to make it kind of fun. We would try to go out to eat. We would have a person pick a place each week. And so it would be like, oh, it's my turn to pick where we're going to eat dinner. So that would be kind of special or whatever. So we did make it the best out of a really bad situation. And we did like talking to each other, but just over time. And it's not just we didn't just sell on the weekends. We also sold in the evenings because the financial burden became so big that we would have to sell after work. We would have to have goals every week. And it just got worse and worse and worse, and it was never changing. And so as it was becoming worse and worse and worse and never changing, I started saying something about it. And I started saying, hey, this is getting really bad, and it's not changing, and this is really affecting Jonathan.
Because I was going every weekend.
Yeah.
I would take another guy in our church, young guy, and we would go on the weekends that the whole group wouldn't go. Mm-hmm. So I was going every single Saturday not consecutively, but for about 7 years, I've sold candy
And I would tell him, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then I started later in the time, I started doing it every Friday and Saturday because I was then like the only one doing it. And so I needed all that time in order to be able to make the money that was needed.
But we got so good at making it the most efficient, knowing the exact like
places
Mexican restaurants, car dealerships. Like we knew the areas to hit at certain times.
You may have even seen us. If you're watching this, you may have seen us sell candy before.
And we were being exploited. But thank you for still buying the candy because
it made our lives easier.
It did make our lives easier the more money we made for these very bad people.
Now we need
but anyway.
So we did that. We were selling. So we got engaged in 2015. Mm-hmm. So we were dating end of 2014
and
into 2015.
I think the first candy selling day was in 2015.
I think so.
Yes.
So we were. I remember the weekend.
So our whole relationship
has
this has definitely hurt our relationship, because there's been this tension.
I've been gone for a lot of it.
You've been gone for a lot of it. The Saturdays, Saturdays are super touchy because no matter who I would say it to, I would go to a pastor's wife. I would go to, and I would say, hey, this is really bad for Jonathan. Like, he's really stressed out about it. And, like, this is not healthy. Like, and they would either say, they would turn it back on me and they would be like, well, this is the first we've heard of it, which, by the way, is called gaslighting. Because
that's not true.
That's not true. They've heard of it. And they would blame it on me and be like, you're not communicating enough about this. And that's the problem. If you're communicating enough, then
it wouldn't
be so bad.
It was always
Another one is you're having a bad attitude about it. And because you're having a bad attitude about it, you're not going to get the blessing. You're not going to get blessed by it. God's not blessing your sales. God's not blessing your sales. Who is bad? Who is bad?
Yeah.
And then another time, I remember this very clearly, where one of the girls in our group said, hey, it's really rough today. Like, we're going into places and people are rude. And that's really hard. And I remember very specifically the lead pastor, or pastor emeritus dude, man, he put the song So You've Had a Bad Day in a mockery. And when I tell you, I was like, oh no.
We couldn't have a hard day because we had to have a good attitude.
You had to have a good attitude. So again, that's the emotional control.
You couldn't be like
that's
exhausted.
That's the emotional control. So we were gaslit, emotionally controlled. Yes, we did talk about how bad it was. And yes, we were like turned at every time we talked about how bad it was, there was and somehow it was your fault. Somehow this, somehow that.
And I want to talk about like how they kept me in there for so long and doing it, because I was very vocal and very put action to what I'm saying about trying to make money. So they saw that in me, and they didn't see that in everybody, all of the men there. Not saying that the other men weren't doing that, but they like highlighted me, and so they would like pump me up as this like good person or whatever to keep me in there, doing what they wanted, because the money hadn't been coming in, and then whenever I started doing it, it did start coming in. And I remember hearing that like there was this first Sunday where we actually met the need, and then it was like years, every Sunday we met the need, and I was proud of that. I was like, the Lord is blessed. We're being diligent, but I think they would like try to, I don't know if that's really love bombing or what, but they would really like try to make me feel really good about myself because I was making them money and showing that I wanted to make them money.
And so when they gave you affection that you were desperately wanting,
needing and wanting,
that you were wanting to have that relationship with them.
I wanted them to love me and give me approval and
but the problem with that is that it wasn't unconditional.
Right.
Their love had conditions.
Right.
Their love meant that. And if you love the pastors, then you would do this for them.
Right.
And so you had to, and if you love God, then you would love the pastors. And so if you aren't loving the pastors by providing enough, that means you aren't loving God. And that
there was some
was a
weird
chokehold.
connections
It
there.
had a chokehold over us. And let me tell you, this is not just something that I remember sermons on the need. I remember them using the verses, not to muzzle the ox. That's later we find out these things are twisting of scriptures. Not don't muzzle the ox. I remember the double honor verses, because that's something that really got Jonathan a lot. I'd be like, this is just too much. Like, we can't do this a lot. And he would be like, but it says they're worthy of double honor. But it says, and so all these, the word of God was twisted to hurt us and to justify this.
And after looking at it, like nowhere in Scripture, nowhere in the Bible does it give any individual the authority to demand a specific amount of money from somebody else. And that's what they were doing.
Yeah, but
that's where,
but not just in Scripture, like from a very human standpoint.
No, I know. Yeah, but I'm just saying
utter
that
abuse, and God is not abusive.
They were using Scripture to justify that. And the thing is, too, is like, what I remember very much is that they would talk about, if I had faith, if I was diligent, then the Lord would bless. What did that mean? If the Lord's blessing, that means we're making the money that we need. What does that mean? It means that they're making whatever money that they need and they want. So basically, if I'm diligent and faithful, the Lord is going to provide a specific amount of money. And so that means if that specific amount of money is not provided, then I was at fault for not being faithful and for not being diligent in what I was doing and really loving the Lord. There was some sin or some wrong that I was doing, or the other people in the church, that caused God not to bless it to that extent. It wasn't just that the Lord would bless. It was like their definition was that he would bless to that amount, which is just, thinking about it now, I'm like, nowhere in the Bible does it say anything about that. And it's just like, you feel bad about yourself. You feel like you've done something wrong. If you don't make, let's say you need $2,000 in a week. If you don't make $2,000, that means you're in sin. That means you're not Christian. That means you're all these bad things. And it's just like, who says that? Who can declare that you needing to make a certain amount of money? So that's the level of like importance that I believed making money was, like the eternal significance of it. And I remember when I stopped giving money.
Also, it meant, so like over time, this of course took years, the more dependent they became on you and me, but you more specifically, the harder it was, like when you would see their kids, when you would see their kids have needs, or you would see they have more and more kids, or they have more and more needs. And you're like, well, how can we tell them you can't be paid because they have to feed their kids? And so you would internalize responsibilities that aren't yours because of your affection for them.
Yep. But the thing is,
that
too, is
got
like,
harder and harder to say no, because you're like, that means we know the consequence of saying no.
You can take that all the way down to the part wherever I did say, I don't have it. And the pastor said, the pastors can't go without a paycheck. Yeah. So it's not like we weren't saying it. It's not like we weren't saying like this isn't working or whatever. It was that, no, that's not an option. Yeah. Like it was, I even remember, I have the email where I emailed, so one of the head pastor had told me, if you ever can't provide, if you ever can't make it, or not going to, just give me a heads up. Let me know so that I can be ready. So I did. I was like, I remember one time at probably like 2019-ish, 2018, I was like, look, this just isn't happening. And the other pastor, the pastor emeritus, came in and said, no, you never tell your pastor that you're not going to provide or you don't have enough money. You go out and you get it. Like there was no option. There was the talk of one thing, of actual relationship and, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? What are we going to do? But then the actual reality of it was, no, you have to make it no matter what. I remember nights of being there where it's like the men, it came Sunday and we only made a few $1,000s and we needed $7,000. And it's like, we had to get it. We had to come up with it that night. And it was like, people, you weren't allowed to go into debt, but you had to have the money. So it's like, how do you do that? Like,
It's coercion of the
don't.
highest
There's
order.
no possible way.
Yeah.
And so you can't. I mean, there was just no way. So
Well,
that
see,
was
that's your
just
fault.
really right.
That's your fault because
You
you
let it
don't
get to
have the
that
money.
point
You
or
let it
whatever.
get to that point.
Yeah.
And so you going into debt, that's not their fault.
No.
It means it's a consequence of your sin. God's not
Right.
blessing what you're doing.
But you couldn't go into debt. But then
you
you
can't
had
go
to go
into
into
debt.
debt.
But you go into debt because that's a consequence of your action.
Yeah. So it really
It's
came
really
down to
twisted.
over the years, it came down to more and more people left the church, and it was me and one other gentleman, maybe two for most of the time, and then one. We were providing for the whole thing. I think I was probably providing about 67% of it at the time, and he was doing probably like 20%, and the rest of the congregation had the other 10% or whatever, just through tithe. And then when he left, which was in 2023, I was providing for the whole thing. And the Lord had actually really blessed our company with a lot of work and a lot of ability to be able to support. But then that happened with after my surgery, and y'all can go watch one of the previous videos where we talk about how the pastor tells me that we don't have the money. And
Well,
the
you tell the pastor.
I tell the pastor we don't have the money, and he says
said you can't go without.
the pastor can't go without a paycheck. So, but I don't know. One story which I just find so telling about the conditional love that you mentioned was 2023, when this other gentleman left the church. I was left there. We were in the middle of building the church building, and the person who left was the contractor. So we had no contractor anymore, and the building wasn't done. So I, at the time, was running 2 businesses, maybe 3 businesses, working full time and needing to build this building, as well as provide for the complete financial support of 3 families. Plus, I was having open heart surgery like 4 months later. And I remember, and having to take care of the pastor's yard and house. So I would spend hours at his house every week. And I remember the closer I got to the surgery and I stopped spending as much time there, he got on to me for not caring and loving for him because I wasn't spending as much time at his house. And just looking back at that, number one, in my physical condition, I shouldn't have even been there in the first place with the surgery and everything. But then it's just like that's all he ever really cared about was like me taking care of his place. And there's a whole history of that, of like having to take care of his house for free and all of this stuff. And that was just like eye-opening now of like how much he really didn't care for me, but just wanted something from me, which hurts because I thought he cared for me.
And you cared for him.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. By the way, I was trying to help him see that the whole time. Just letting you know that he was not by himself doing all this stuff without my help. Like, I helped him. A lot of times I would do stuff with him even though I disagreed because I didn't want him to be alone. And, but I also was always there saying, this is too much. This is not good for you. This is not okay. You need to tell them no. But he just didn't have that strength yet to tell them no. And there's lots of psychological reasons for that. But they completely used him and abused him, and I have a real issue with it. And I watched it happen, and I tried to help him, and that I do have a problem with that. Just like knowing, like I saw it go on, and I would try to warn, and I would try to prevent it, but there's like only so much that I could do. And I have like I know that it wasn't in my control, but I just wish it just didn't. It wasn't the way that it was. I wish that they would have not done those things. And he would have been like, yeah, this is wrong, but I know that God will work it together for good. But we say these things because we know that this is not actually, this happens in other organizations, and it happens in this one currently, most likely.
And we know things are happening still. We don't know the specifics, but if you are watching this and you're in there, just like hear some of these things and see like how this just isn't right, and hear our experience through it, because we don't want you to have to go through.
We don't want you to
the same thing we did
when the pastor demands money from you, so that he can abuse you in a sermon and gaslight you and tell you that you can't feel and that you can't trust your own memories. So you're paying him to hurt you. I mean, that's just that. If that's not the biggest blow ever, is that hundreds of thousands, almost probably million over time. Millions.
Over years, not from us, but yeah.
That were paid for abuse. What was the exchange? Abuse, spiritual abuse. That is horrible. It's so bad. This is pattern after pattern after pattern after person leave in the same. They're dealing with the same problems. Everybody has the same problems. That means that you're dealing with someone that is doing the same thing, unrepentant. So,
to give like one example of just how I grew up and with the whole financial side of things, just a quick story. And when I was a kid, I tried to make money selling things on eBay. The pastor said he would help me. He gave me some of his own items to sell, and he said, you can sell it, just give me 20% of the profits. And then once you reach $100, give me the $100. So I did that. Well, after a while, he asked for the $100, and I said, I haven't made it yet. And then he was like, eventually he came to me and said, you should have been giving me the 80% and you keeping the 20%. Which is the complete opposite of what he had said in the beginning. So then he said, give me a list of everything you've sold. So I gave him a list of everything I sold. He went through it and decided what the price should have been sold for, what the item should have been sold for, or if it hadn't been sold, what it should sell for. And then he made me give him that money. So I had to go start working. This was when I was 14. I had to go start working in order to make money to pay him back for something that he completely changed and lied about. And that was just a small example of the financial abuse at that age that just expounded.
When
so
you
much
couple
more.
that with the fact that you have a heart problem,
yeah,
and they are doing this to a person with a heart problem, there is nothing that can justify this behavior. These are people that are supposed to be good people that you're supposed to trust, people that are supposed to help, people that are supposed to serve, but we're the ones serving them.
Serve is nowhere in the vocabulary.
No. No, yes it is. They tell us to serve them.
Yeah.
So it's really bad, but that's our,
That's a general overview of the financial abuse. There is like so many details and like things. I'm sure that we could tell you stories and stories and stories of everything that happened.
Will.
But that's what happened. So, if this is happening in your life, there's no justification, biblical or anything for it. There's just not. And so we hope that you can kind of see that through this and maybe leave wherever you are. But yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to listen, and we'll be back for more later. Have a great day.